Another way to think about manipulating cardboard is that you don't actually cut it, but you create changes in the planes by compressing sort of lines. It's the same way that a box is put together. I think we all have had a lot of experience with boxes in our lives where the corners are compressed and they bend there. So you can do that yourself by, actually it's great to use a table edge to do that. Let me see if I can roll over this way. Okay, so I'm going to go up to the end of the table. You might actually make a measurement of where you want to do this. Also note that along your corrugation is going to give you the easiest and cleanest folds. Okay, so I've got my line right at the edge of this table, and I'm going to carefully bend it. And actually that worked pretty well. So there you go. You can sort of make turning planes with this. And the closer together your folds are, the more articulated your curve will be. Whereas if you have them far apart, there'll be a bigger difference. All right, so I'm going to line up the next bend, press that down. Didn't hit exactly on the line, maybe because I was a little careless in how I held it. Okay, so here's the next one. And it will kind of go where it is naturally inclined to bend. That's also part of it. Here's another one. Okay, so here is the start of a curve. And the more you work with this, the more it compresses and the more curve you will get. And imagine this in a piece of material that's not a rectangle, but you know, it's shaped in some way. And then here's an even bigger one. Okay, so you have them further away, you're going to have more of an angular look. So you can make it even tighter than this. Another thing I've had students do is to like compress the thing all over so that it really sort of crushes the structure and makes it more conducive to curvilinear forms. So there's that, and essentially this is just bending where the corrugation is every time I do this. So a little bit more of a gradual thing. Okay. The more you work with that, the more it's going to gracefully curve. Now, if you try to do this on a diagonal, it's going to be, or a diagonal or something that's perpendicular to the grain of the material, is going to be harder and not nearly as tidy. So first let's start with the diagonal. So here I go. We'll see how this turns out. Not too bad, really. Pretty good. All right, so diagonal, like 45 is good. The closer you get to horizontal, let's see how this goes. Well, okay, not too bad either. I'm just proving myself to be overly pessimistic with this. So there are lots of ways to bend cardboard. So there's this, you don't even have to score with this. Scoring means like it's like your first cut when you're cutting the cardboard, but you can bend some things that way. I also had a student who almost achieved a leather-like texture with the cardboard by, I think she beat it with a hammer. And then folded it so that it really had a very organic shape, something that was rigid and everything like this. The more you sort of abuse it, the more you can make it go the way you want. So this sort of technique, along with slotting and cutting, if anyone has ever worked with making clothing patterns, which are essentially planes that are designed to fit a curvilinear object, darts and slashes account for making curved points. I'm just going to show you what I'm talking about. Hand-drawn cut, hand-drawn slash here. I'm going to just lightly cut, cut, cut. Okay. So if I do this, and now that this material is kind of soft, I can turn it over and it becomes more rounded. And the more of those types of slots you would make, the more round you could actually get this material to appear. So thinking about creating a little bit of a texture through physical manipulation and not drawing it or painting it on there, there is removing the surface material to expose the corrugated section of the core, the corrugated core of the cardboard. So I've drawn basically sort of a scallop pattern, and honest to God, I'm experimenting here, but I'm going to lightly trace around these, very lightly. Don't pull hard, especially if you don't have like a ruler protecting your hands. Just do this super delicately. Also, I'm bracing my hand on the material so that I'm not like using the force of my arm. I have a little bit of regulation with how I'm cutting into this. An X-Acto knife might be a better tool if you want to get into this because it's smaller, a little easier to be fine with it. But you're getting a box cutter in your kit for sure. So if this is what you have, then that's what you'll use. And I will try out light, light, light. Don't cut your thumb. Don't cut your thumb. I'm telling this to myself as much as I am telling it to you. Light, light, light. Okay. Okay. So now I've essentially cut the top layer of the material, and I'm prying it up to expose that cool surface beneath. And with something like this, like I've designed this sort of scallop thing, it would be interesting to leave the little tab of the smooth to add some texture. Okay, and I like how it sort of curls up a little bit. Let's see how these do. If it's not cut enough, just carefully cut a little more. I really hope that as I do this, I'm doing the smart things that I've told you to do, like to keep your fingers out of the way. I'm fairly confident with this kind of stuff, but confidence can also mean you're setting yourself up to get hurt if you're overly confident. Okay. So you've got exposure and then peel back that you can play with. I really just want to get this scallop to work. Let's see how it goes. And no, I'm not doing the whole thing for the video because I don't want you to go to sleep. Maybe this would be a good sleep video. Okay, let's just get one more. The last one I cut. Pry it up a little bit. If you have a thumbnail, that works great too. See, I damaged that one. I damaged that first tube in there. So you can practice and get better if you want to have perfect corrugation left behind. You can certainly get more practiced at it. But anyway, there is a way to create some texture. Or you could even, I'm just trying this out here. Top layer only. And start to peel that back. And look at how nice that is. Ooh. Super cool. This would be a really great way to suggest a shadow on a flat surface, so that you'd be combining both 3D with 2D concepts of, you know, sort of a trompe-l'oeil effect of having a darker value on your material. So, textures, making forms. See if I add more to this. I'm going to add another cut. So if we do this, you can really do some cool stuff with slots. Okay, then how would you attach these things? You could use hot glue. Carefully place hot glue in here, and don't burn yourself. Hot glue is a bad burn, because guess what? It's glue and it sticks to your hand and it's burning hot and it gives terrible blisters. So please be careful. You could hot glue in here. Same thing. There's one more way I want to show you how to attach a couple planes together. Another way to join things together where, say, you don't want to have a perpendicular crossing thing, but say you want to have a plane with a plane only rising up from its base. So forget the bottom. One way to do that is essentially, this is the top piece to be perpendicular, and I want it to be perpendicular here. So I'm going to draw a line, and this is going to be my cut to depth. And then I am going to, every so often, place a vertical line. And one more just for fun. And I'm going to, guess what? I'm going to cut those. Okay. Keeping my fingers out of the way. It's important that you have a cut to line, and you don't be short of it or too far, because that will give you sort of an irregular object to try to glue down to another flat object. So you want to keep your cut to line intact. Don't go over it. If you're a little short, you can always add a little more cut, but there's pretty much no going back if you overcut. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to come back to the table edge and bend these. Okay. Line up both ends. You can't see this, but the other end is lined up at the edge here. And I'm going to bend this down. I'm going to bend every other one. I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to bend the ones that I didn't bend, which is only 2. It's probably good to have an equal amount on both sides, but then you end up with this thing like this, okay? Shadow's not very cooperative. So if you would hot glue this down, and you would have to essentially like get your 2 ends started, one end and then the other, and then pull these up and hot glue under your tabs, your flaps, then you'd have a nice rigid supported surface. And honestly, you could kind of use these as a visual element too, like if you took them from a rectangle to curving the corners or something, then they could be like a very cool element in whatever you're doing. Even if you just simply, I'm going to cut it while it's up because my mind might not work the right way. So I'm going to cut just a little, ooh, it's very dangerous. dangerous. Okay, I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna lay it down. I'm gonna cut it like this. Keep your thumb tucked in. What happens if we do the same on two opposites? Okay, so already a cool thing could potentially happen with this opposite business going on. And then if you did both sides, this does reduce your gluable area a little bit, but as long as you leave yourself enough area to provide a good contact, then you'll be okay. Again, a lot of this is just experimentation, and you'll find multiple cool things. A lot of what I've been doing today, honest to God, is experimentation. Oh, I'm way off the shot here. There you go. So to recap, you have a standing perpendicular arrangement, and imagine these as not rectangles. And I just want you to be able to apply this technique to whatever the thing is that you want to build. If you don't want to have sort of the cross pattern of this arrangement, then the standing wall would be a good option. Okay? Hot glue. You need hot glue with that. Expanding on your basic perpendicular slotted stuff, you can have curvilinear things, which also means that they sort of have new resting positions. I dig this quite a bit. And manipulating, so there's scoring and bending to create curves. Even diagonal works pretty well. Horizontal works well too. Use the edge of the table. It'll really, really help you. There is peeling and revealing to create this sort of a texture. There's a light cut slicing and peeling away, and also slotting. And this is after like compressing the material a little bit. Slot, and you could hot glue, or perhaps even maybe try a stapler. That could be good too. And the more you do this, the more curve you can make out of your planar surface. Okay, so keys to remember: cutting surface. Do not cut on the table. Use a ruler, ideally one that is backed in cork, because let me just pull over one that doesn't have a cork backing. And what does it do on cardboard? It slides around. Is this one? No, it doesn't slide around. So, cork backed, if you have it. Nice sharp blade. Sharp, slow, and deliberate. And keep your cutting light. Use multiple passes. And I will show you how to open this up and change your blade. Well, you know what I don't have with me today? It's a screwdriver. And you might find yourself in the same position. So let me show you another way to open your box cutter if you don't have a screwdriver. You probably have keys. So this is a Phillips head. You can kind of press it down in there. Make sure your blade is put back into the knife before you get started. See if you can get this going. I hope I'm not just editing this part out for failure, but it might be. So with a Phillips, which is the plus shaped screw, you could also use a flathead screwdriver. Okay, so this is not working. I've got to find a real screwdriver. Okay, found a screwdriver in my sewing accessory box. So I'm going to use a flathead, which gives you a little less leverage than a Phillips. This is also a little small for this screw. We remove the screw, take it out, and looky there. Blade, there's your blade. Okay, so I bought this at a super cheapo place. Oftentimes you will have replacement blades right in here. So to replace your blade, first of all, okay, so it has two edges. This is the one we've been using. If you find that you're having to press too hard or pull on your blade, turn it around, okay? See this little notch right there? That little notch, this goes here. All right. And then you place it back in its slot. See, it fits in there nicely. You might have to mess around with it a little bit. It's kind of, the blades are greasy too. You don't want to get that on your cardboard. Might come out. You might have some of the exact same irritants that I'm having when you do this. And put your cover back on. See if this is going to be. And it'll just fit together, so something is not right here. No, that's not right. Okay. I'm going to put this, okay, in the retracted position. So press, you see there's a little spring down here. So you want it to hold all the way back, because when you want to be working with this, you want it closed. So now if this doesn't meet, like it's ready to be closed, it's not closed. You'll just have to fool around with it a little bit. Put your screw back. Make it tight. And there you go. How to replace. There is another kind of blade which you don't have here, but it's sort of a long skinny plastic thing, and it has one long blade, and you take needle nose pliers and pinch off, you break off the end of the blade when it's dull. It's like pre-scored to break off to just have a new fresh blade. But that's how you do these. And these you can keep forever also. They tend to get lost though. If you're really in love with yours, do something like spray paint on it so that you know exactly which one is yours that you like. Okay, happy cutting of cardboard and not cutting of the flesh.